Hey guys, I'm DN, the amazing Steve Pottinger. I'm just going to shut up shop now. Straight over to Steve. Go for it, my friend.
Cheers, Andy. All right. Well, we talked about it in the first half, the opening book, poem in the book. So it seemed like a good place to start. Give you a taste of what the book's like. So this is the book, by the way. There you go. This poem is this photo with friends. Must have been taken in summer. We're where paths meet in a park, looking unbelievably young, fresh-faced, taut skin, bouncing. And we're laughing as we take it in turns to push each other around in a shopping trolley we've found somewhere and wouldn't dream of thinking of returning. Here is my first tattoo. Here, my anarcho crusty mullet haircut. Here, the pair of ragged combats I spent an afternoon dyeing black and cut to just above the knee. Here, the flatness of my stomach. Here, the espadrilles on my feet, which will forever smell of late lost nights and wet rope. We're so young, all of us, so full of hope. None of us have stumbled into dead-end jobs or dead-end relationships. None of us have woken to be told of a shadow on lung, liver, bowel, the need to telescope plans to the immediate. None of us are addicts yet, and none of us have died. The sun is shining. We have a shopping trolley. I can hear us laughing, even now.
The memories of that piece, Steve, are phenomenal because it was like, it's like for me when you're playing that back then, it's like you were saying my life in different contexts. And I think it's a lot of people's lives when you talk about memories like in those sort of pieces like that. It's how everybody thinks about it, thinking, yeah, that's my life too.
Mm.
The people that were in your life and not sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I look back and I just think, I look at the photos now and I go, geez, I was still a kid. Now, if you'd have said that to me then, I would have been furious because I knew everything. Do you know what I mean? And I was going to change the world and the world was going to be different. How could you understand? But yeah.
Yeah, no, agreed,
Hey ho.
agreed, mate. So it is, but I think that's part of the person, the natural progression of growing up anyway. You get to the stage that you think you're 18, the world's your oyster, but you find out it's not.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I was just turning through to find another poem, and this is one. This is something. Again, sometimes I always say to people that sometimes you'll have an idea for a poem and you try and do it, and it's like pulling teeth, and it's really hard work, and you have to graft at it and whatever. And every now and then, something just happens. And it feels like, I know there's more to it than that, but it feels like your only job is actually to start the pen moving and let it go, and it'll stop when it's ready. And it's, if something happens in front of you, and this happened in front of me, and I hope the poem kind of gives you an idea of what went on. It's called The Library Staff Deal with Another Inquiry. Gary would like to know the names of the 12 apostles. He's here in the library asking for a book about the 12 apostles. Any book, a kid's one will do. Just a book with the names of the 12 apostles, Jesus' 12 apostles and what they did. I mean, what did they do for a living? Gary asks. There was one who was a fisherman, right? But the rest of them, what did they do? Is there a book on it? He thought the library would have a book on the 12 apostles, their names, and what they stood for. They must have stood for something. Is there a book? There should be a book. Gary would like a book. So, yeah, that one.
Great stuff. No, I see me with that piece straight away with that, because it's, if you said the context, and it feels like it's somewhat just jumps out of you sometimes, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah. And also it was like there's that awareness that, I mean, I was working in a library that day, and that, I mean, libraries are having a tough time at the minute anyway, because austerity budget cuts, and they're one of the obvious fall guys. But also, they're more than just a place where people get books. They're often they're part drop-in centre, part kind of mental health sort of safe space as well. And it's just, yeah, they're precious things. And also library staff sometimes have the patience of saints, I'll be quite honest. So I said Snapshots from the Fall of Home is the book, and a lot of them are moments and snapshots. And for this poem, I'm going to take you down to my local. I have changed the name of it for the purposes of the poem, but I'm taking you down to my local, which on this particular day, at this particular time, there were probably a lot of other pubs in the country in the same situation. And again, well, here you go. I hope you enjoy it. It's called Crown and Sceptre, Friday, 9th of September, 4:15. And Niall is telling the barmaid he's going to ring the lawyer. He's going to ring the lawyer, as she nods and smiles and nods and smiles and paws, because it's doing his head in. It's doing his bastard head in. And yeah, go on, he'd like another bud. And he prowls like a tiger in a water pub where all the screens are set to sports channels, but there's no sports to show. And Shane and Mark pop in for a quick one to wash the Junction 10 dust from the back of their throats, and the quick one will be 4 or 5 at least, as Shane and Mark and the barmaid all know. And she smiles and paws and smiles and smiles and paws. And they have a regular wage and high vis. You can see them both from space, and the screens are set to horse racing. But there's no horse race. And the lads who drank at the Eagle until the Eagle closed are at the table in the corner so they can see who comes and goes. And the barmaid pours their lager, pours their lager, pours their lager, and they offer her again a grin. And the sports channels say, no football. And yeah, that means that this week you can't lose. It doesn't mean you ever win. And they're all bucket hats and swagger, and they're ready to take flight. And one of them has a mouth that's guaranteed to lead his fists into a fight. And the barmaid keeps an eye on them. And they think she could be flirting, but she's smiling, pouring, nodding. And she thinks she's almost certain that laughter's not offensive. Kicking a ball is nothing wrong. And channels made for sport should have some sport on. And the men who last had jobs when there were factories in this town, who have a Friday evening pint as if the work was still around, and the plasterers and painters and the plumbers and the drivers and the blokes who have a market stall, the shift workers and skivers are all in here for the crack. A pint. Perhaps, who knows, the short. And the barmaid smiles and nods and smiles and nods and smiles and nods and pours in this backwater pub on a Friday, where sports channels don't show sport.
Oh, that ending of that, Steve, is majestic, that one. Because you look at pubs and stuff nowadays to keep them all self-going. Like I can't name any pubs that don't have sports on, certainly my way. And I bet you can't up your way either.
No. And I remember there was, back when I was still living up in Leeds, there was one of the pubs we really loved, and it didn't at that point. I think it had a jukebox, but it was before everybody was showing sports. And they had a new landlord, and he was right. I'm bringing in a big screen, and we're going to put sports on. And we were furious. And I got a poem about the idea that we might just slash the screen to ribbons, because it was stopping people talking. And now go in, and the screens everywhere. And that last poem, I mean, the reason there was no. It was the day the Queen died and everything stopped. But people were still out. The pub was still full of people having a pint. Nobody was sitting there weeping into their beer. But you'd got somebody whose job was normally to commentate on horse racing, having to somehow link the fact the 4:15 at Ascot wasn't happening to, I don't know, Her Majesty's passion for horses. And it was all a bit, yeah. Anyway, that's where the poem came from.
Yeah, I know. There's a pub up my way, and where you get your XP's ready. It's just shut actually, and the landlord had an interesting philosophy, and it didn't work because I don't. Where he didn't want TV on, didn't want to serve meals, and if people came along and started putting the mobile out of the pocket, messing around with the mobile and the phones, he would make them leave the pub.
Wow.
Yeah, the pub shut didn't last, but he's you don't even need Daniels doing that nowadays. That's for sure with it.
Oh, blimey. I'll tell you what I'll do for the last one. Because if you've been listening to this, folks, you've probably noticed a bit of a theme, which is that I write very much in response to the world around me. If there are poets who write brilliantly about, if you like, what goes on inside their heads and their identity and their relationship with themselves and other people, and that's not something I do. I as far as I'm concerned, the interesting things aren't me. They're what's out there. They're people around me, their nature. It's just the richness of life. You know, I can't wait to get out there and be in it. And I find that far more interesting than me. And that's not casting any shade on people who write that. It's not my writing. So this poem is another one which basically I've been into Birmingham to go and meet some mates and have a few pints of an afternoon, largely celebrating the fact that my leg was out of plaster and I was back in a protective boot and could go into Birmingham and have a few pints. And I was waiting for the tram back to Wolverhampton, and all of this happened. And I just, it's one of my favourite poems. No, I shouldn't have favourites. Don't. I hope they weren't listening, but this was one of them. So, 7:19 in the evening, and the boy outside New Street Station is singing a lament for us all. He sings for the puffer jacket kids, clothed and camouflaged in swagger. He sings for the electric bike takeaway riders who crisscross the city, silent and determined, their two-wheel spinning gig economy. He sings for the husk of a lad who totters tram tracks like a ballerina trailing a sleeping bag, who is going nowhere good in his own slow time and is lost to us. He sings for young couples, still in love, touching hands and clasping ready meals, heading back to city apartments to share each other's dreams. He sings for football fans and figures folded in the shadow of doorways. He sings for shift workers, their aching backs, their fallen arches. He sings for the quiet conversation of women on their way to clean offices. He sings for the "is this? Isn't this?" flirtation of friends. He sings for our mistakes, our wrong turnings, our missed opportunities, the bright future that slipped through our fingers, the better world that disappeared. He sings, and his voice, pure and soft, a gift, spirals out to join satellites and stars, seeking nothing but the joy of its own being. An offering to God, if God is listening. And I think we should all be crying here. We should, all of us, be crying. It's 7:19 in the evening, and the boy outside New Street Station sings. There you go.
Tremendous stuff indeed, Steve. That great way. You've made the right judgment call. I think there, finishing off when you did there. But that's the sort of piece where I couldn't have asked you to do another one after that, mate. You know, tremendous stuff, mate. So,
oh, bless you. Thank you. Yeah, I've really enjoyed doing this.
Yeah, it's been great. It's been great fun having you on as well, mate. Said, well, I always tell people, I will tell you definitely the same again, mate. When the next book's ready, give me a nudge, okay? Definitely.
Oh, God, absolutely. Love
to have you on again, mate. Because like I said, Spoken Label ain't going anywhere, right?
Right.
I've been doing this for 8 years now when I've done over 400 sessions. So I don't think it's going anywhere just yet.
That's good going. Well, when after this, drop me an email and give us your address, and I'll fire a copy over to you. All right?
Yes, please, mate. And I'll do your review on Goodreads and Amazon definitely as soon as I've got it, mate. Be a pleasure. Right, we'll wrap up this point anyway, guys and girls. Can be and Mr. Pottinger are going to carry on chatting for a bit longer anyway. So it's been a pleasure, Steve, mate.
It's been great. Thank you so much. Indeed.
Way too long last we spoke, mate. So, right, guys, girls, that's it for today. Thank you again, Steve. Now, as Don Callis over at AEW Wrestling says, stay safe and stay over. We will see you all next